Welcome everyone, this is Mutan Raghavan. This video we are going to continue with page object model. However, it's required to understand about the locators in Playwright. In previous sessions on Java side, we have covered Playwright with a different locators like a text locators and CSS locators. In case of locators, regardless of which language you use it, it will be the same. So that's the reason we are not covering again one more time the locators part. If you want to see the locators part again for the CSS and text selectors, we will always provide the link in the description. You can go through that and we will refresh on the locator side. Now we are going to start with page object model. In most of the tutorials, you will start the page object model at the end. But by that time you will be having more understanding at the simple level. Now if you go to the page object model, again it looks like a one more area. So we will try this different time. Let's say for example we will try directly with page object model. We will start with simple script with page object model. Then we will to elaborate or let's say evolve to a bigger framework in the same level of page object model. Before starting the page object model, we would like to know about the page object model, how it works and what should be inside the page object model, what should not be. So for that, rather than directly going to the coding part, we are trying to understand something on the page object model theoretically. Then we will start with the coding part. So for that, here you can see you will have the page class. The first and foremost understanding should be here, this page class, it's not the page that we get from the Playwright. So this is the web page that you will get in your application under the website. Sometimes it's possible that we will get confused with the page object which we get from the Playwright. That is a different page object that is representing the page object inside the web browser. Whereas these web pages are the business application and its pages. So that means that generally when you interact with any web page, you will be interacting with a lot of elements like a checkbox, text box, button, radio button and everything. So if you start writing the test cases for each and every time as a record and playback, as you write every time in the different test cases, you are hard coding the value and it's very difficult to maintain the same. Just example, if anything changes inside the login, let's say you have written 200 test cases. So every place you have mentioned the login locators or the text box locators that need to be updated. So for that reason, we are going to have each and every page as a class. In that class, we will be having only the locators and the business functions, nothing else. So that means that you will be having everything locators there like a variables, so that wherever you use the variable, there is only one place you will change it. And coming to the business functions, it's not something like a click button or validate button, nothing like that. It will be like a business steps. For example, create a order, or let's say login, logout, or let's say change the user or create new user. Everything should be in the business topic, not nothing like a technical. So that means that locators and the business functions. And one more thing main to be noted is here you will not have any validation or any hard coded value apart from these two. Now coming to the test specs. When you write the test cases, you will be using the object of the web page class. So that means that the business page class. So that you can use every business functions that you wrote in the page class and you can access the locators as well. Apart from that, you will be calling those business function obviously. Then you will have the validations part. So that means that the real validation happens in the test cases. As the name suggests, every validation should be done in the test specs. So that's the standard way of doing the page object model. Now in the previous video we have created the simple test cases. Now we will try to implement the same thing. But I am planning to have some web page which has most of the UI elements so that we can learn something extra as well. So for that we can go to the demo QA. It is one of the sample site. So in that you will have the automation practice form, or if you don't know have that, just type demoqa.com and here you can see the different elements individually as well as a form. So I'm just going to click on the forms and here I'm clicking on the practice form. since we have less, let's say less time in this video for understanding the locators, because we concluded that we will be learning the locators separately in the other references, so I'm just going to get the locators for this. So just inspect, very simple way, not with recording, not with anything different. Right click and copy and selectors. Let's open notepad, paste it. So this is for first name, the same thing goes to the last name. Right click, copy. But in other scenarios it will not be very simple like this, but just to understand the page object model, we will try to get this, just get into this field and enter some values. Okay, that's fine. Now go to the VS Code where we stopped last time. So now we have decided we need to create the page object. So rather than creating the same test cases, we will be creating the separate folder. So try to right click on your outside of these files, because if you just right click on this test folder, it will create the subfolder under the test. Right click outside and mention new folder. Let's mention pages. Again one more time to notify. So this pages is not the page class or page object from the Playwright. These are the web pages, business web pages. Now under this pages you create the form page .ts. Better to maintain the notation like form then page, or let's say tomorrow login page. So the suffix should be the page. It's a standard. If you want to follow, just follow that. Now we will start writing the class. So before start writing the class, we need to export that, because whatever you wrote this code, so this code will not be available for the next JavaScript modules or the test cases. So for that we need to type the export default. So we will come to know why it is export default. Default, actually it is something like you don't need to mention the same class name in your import classes. But let's see that one. In simple, this export default will help us to get this class to the other modules. Other modules in the sense other classes, or let's say other TypeScript files to be precise. Now let's say form. Okay, fine. So now let's go to this, copy these CSS locators and let's keep it here. Now let's make the variable name. So this will be like a first name, and you can mention Alt Shift down arrow, it will repeat. Now I am going to change only the last name. Okay, now we have the variables. So you might wonder, since we are using TypeScript, we are not mentioning any type. So if you give the value directly when you create the variables, it automatically infers and gets the type. If you mouse over, you will come to know this is the type of string, form.firstname. Okay, that's good. Now let's go to the constructor part. So this class will be invoked and you can call the different objects, but it will not make sense if you don't have the page object. This page object, what I am referring, is the web page, or the, let's say, the actual page object from the Playwright. Why? Because when you open with the Playwright page object, or let's say the browser with a different URL, and you have navigated to the different URL, and you have set up the different context for the page, Playwright page, then if you pass it here, it will be taken, and the same page you can do the actions. Otherwise it will not have any reference to the existing Playwright page object. So for that we'll get this page, and here it's the type of page. Now here you can see it is the type of Playwright test, and automatically it will import the page. This is from the Playwright. But you might wonder, this page is there but it does not have any reference in this class. So for that what we can do is like the first one, let's go here and type page, and this is type of page, since we are not giving us any value. So it has the type but it does not have any values here, so it's like undefined. So further what we are doing, like say from this class, so let's say this dot page, so from this class, so this page refers to the line number 5 equal to the page that you are getting through the constructor. So why are we making inside the constructor? That means that without this page object you cannot create the object for the this form class. So by this we are confirming that no one calls these methods or variables without having the page object from the Playwright. Now fine, so now let's go to the navigate. The same rules applies whatever the methods we created or the test cases we created in the previous video about the simple test case. So we should be having the async function. Let's say first we need to navigate to the URL. As we discussed, we are not going to hard code anything apart from the variables and business class. So that means that I am going to create the URL which is type of string, and here you know already we have the page object. It has the reference, so page go to and then URL. And you know that when you use the different objects, or let's say the async function, we need to use the await, and this URL is not present. It should work. Just a second. String is not assignable primitive. Okay, because of Java impact it is very straightforward string. It's not the capital string. Okay, fine. So now you don't need to repeat the same thing again. Just select that Alt Shift down arrow down arrow. So next thing we are going to enter the first name. Try as much as modularization so that tomorrow if you have any issues you don't need to worry. F name, and let's say now in this you will be getting the locator, and locator will be the first name, and dot. So again, any problem? Let's see. Yes, when you try to use that first name from this class, we need to mention, because this method does not know what is that first name. So we are using that first name from the same class, so we are mentioning this dot first name, and just type and the value that you get, so F name. The same thing, so we don't need to repeat that previous one. We can repeat the same thing, just changing the last name. Alt Shift down arrow, alias, lname. So here you can change to lname, or better I will copy. So enter last name, everything looks good. So in this way simply we have created the very simple page object. It looks very simple, but some things we need to remember. The first part is we are importing the page object, or let's say page reference, from the Playwright. So this is the reference of the Playwright, and this page class is totally for our web page or business page. Now we have the constructor here. That means that whenever you create object for this form class, definitely you need to pass the page reference, so that we continue with the existing page reference of the Playwright. And in this class line number 4 we have the page reference, because we need to have the placeholder whenever you receive something through the constructor. So for that we are telling this dot page. So from this class we have the placeholder called page, and we are assigning with the value which you get from the constructor. And same like test cases, everything should be the async function, and every statement which has the Playwright references or Playwright object references like a page or expect, that should have the await. Now we have not hard coded anything apart from the locators, and everything is like a methods, simple as it is. And export default, making sure we can use this class outside the same class or same spec. Let's go to the test cases. Now let's create one more file. Let's consider this is form test. Just to maintain the consistency, we will mention the class name test dot. You always type the spec, otherwise sometimes, not sometimes, it's not working, so you cannot execute. If you don't type spec.ts, it's giving issues and it's not showing as a test case only. Now let's create our first test case. So we have the shortcut in last time, so just enter, you have the test case ready. Now you need to import that, or you can directly type it if you want. Let's practice sometime direct base so that we don't have any issues when something not working. So we are importing test and expect from, just type double quote, yes, from Playwright test. Good. Now let's make the initial form test. However, we are entering only the first name and last name, but let's check that. Now you know page, but before that we will create the object for that. As we discussed in the diagram, first you will be creating the page object, which is the business page class. So in our case, form is the business page class. So for that I'm just going to create form1, constant form, okay, and equal to, since we are assigning the value directly, we don't need to create the type here. So new form, and obviously now this constructor needs a page, right? The same page we can send it. Now it is asking to import, so just fix it, quick fix. Somewhat okay. Add import, yes. So this is the best benefit that you can get it. For example, let's see if I want to change something here, let's see, business page, control C, change it. Here you can see there is no impact. So this can be possible only if you have the default. If you don't have the default, it's mandatory that you need to use the same name. However, we are going to use the same name like form. Let's be consistent, and now we can start writing our code. So form dot navigate. You know that navigate method internally uses the async function, so it always should be the await in the starting. So navigate, it needs the URL, right? So let's go to the page and get the URL. If you are using more than once the same variables, you should be having the variable. As of now we have only this one time, that's fine. Now again await form dot enter first name. Let's enter, and alt shift down arrow, last name Raghavan. That's fine. Now almost everything done, but as we discussed, every test case should have minimum one expect or validation. However, we have not done much here, but still we can have the expect statement to check the URL. Expect page dot URL to be the same URL that we have, because we have not changed any pages. But now you can see there is a chance that you are using the same URL twice. Then just right click it, and here it will be some shortcut. Let's say refactor extract constant to the enclosing scope. So now we have just change it to the, now again rename symbol. Let's start with app URL. That's all. So every place it got changed. Now I can use the same variable here. Then right click, format document. That's good. Now we have everything ready. So that means that we have created the page object model with simple constructor and some variables, or let's say some locators, and we are trying to use the same thing here. And here we have created the object for the page object, sorry, to be precise, the business page, and we are using the same thing here, form.navigate. And it makes sense if you read this one, it clearly tells form you are navigating to that form by using the app URL, and in that form dot enter first name, and form you are entering the last name. That's all. Then you are doing some validation. It's a very simple test case. Now let's try running and see. Page has been opened and it's entering the Mukundan and Raghavan. Good. And it's not closing automatically because we does not have actually some hooks which will close, which is called like a before all, or let's say after all. There are some hooks are there. but as of now we are not focusing on these hooks. We will close manually, or you can use the page.close also. That will be the separate session, but as of now you can see the test case works fine. Now try to get some more points here. Now just to open the test output, go to the files and go to the results, right click and open with live server. Here you can see, so the test case has been executed and expect also checked, and you navigate it and you enter the first name, last name, everything looks fine. However, it's better to have the snapshot, so rather than telling a big theory part about these things, we can directly change some minor settings so that we will have the snapshot and video as well. Go to the config, and here you will have the use option. There you will go under the use as a key. Under that there will be JSON object. In that you will be writing screenshot. As soon as you type double quotes, it will give the possible value. So that's the benefit when you have the TypeScript. Now let's create video. Yes, and type and double quotes. Again you can have the on button, but generally people will not prefer every time screenshot and video. Whenever they want to make the screenshot, when it is fails or for the negative test cases, they will take the screenshot. But just to make sure, just to understand the screenshot and video options inside your playwright.config.ts, we are making both on. Now let's go to the test cases and try to run from here directly. Yes, that's great. So now we have completed. Now go to the report, or otherwise let's see here how it looks like if I refresh. Yes, here you can see the screenshot which has the name as the Mukundan Raghavan, and the video, if you play, it will be only 7 seconds I think. Let's see. Yes, of course you have the video as well. So this way we have clearly understood what is page object model, what basically it should be inside your page class or business page class, and what should be inside your test specs. And we have created very simple class in the VS Code form page, and we have followed some standards. In case if you don't want to have this kind of references locally, you can make it as a public, which is very equivalent to what we have done so far. Now you don't need to have anything, even you don't need the statement. That means that indirectly it creates a local variable and it assigns to the object that you get from the constructor. Let's see. It should work. Let's see, check it. Okay, let's revert to the same thing. So default class form, everything looks good. If I remove this, okay, fine, this statement might be required, but generally you don't need to have separate things, so it will create directly public if you mention. But by default every variable you mention in the class will be the public. And test spec, obviously the main thing to be noted is the test case name should always have the spec in it, then only it will be considering as a test case. And even though you create the page object separately, still all the functions should be the async, and every statement that you use the page references from the Playwright should have the await in front of that. And remaining things, just to make sure you have the variable here so that people does not enter anything wrongly. For example, let's say I will just enter here 1 2 3, and here you can see the error message, argument of type number is not assignable to a parameter type of string. So that's where the type safety comes into picture. So when you start writing the types, so by default somebody will not write anything apart from the value string, they could not. So that's the beauty about the TypeScript. So this is all about this video. So thanks for watching and have a great day.